Hi, everybody. Many of us are very familiar with the medical drama House, starring Hugh Laurie, a precarious character that borders on eccentric and over the top. What you may not know is that the woman who is behind the inspiration of that drama is a Connecticut native, and her real-life work as a Yale University internist is kind of what sparked the series. Her name is Dr. Lisa Sanders, and she is author of Every Patient Tells a Story, Medical Mysteries and the Art of Diagnosis, and she is here today. Dr. Sanders, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Interesting book. Well, we're going to get into your work on House and how that all came about, but I want you to set up the story behind your book. What kind of inspired you to write it?
Well, first, when I came to medicine, so medicine was my second career. I used to work in television. I'm sorry.
So she's very TV savvy, everybody.
So I had this midlife crisis, and I decided to come to medicine after I had covered it for years. And so when I got to medical school, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to know everything. I'm going to know everything about medicine. And then when I got onto the wards, which is what you do your last 2 years in medical school, I realized that there was a part of medicine that I had never even heard of, and that is this making a diagnosis. And this was not so long ago, but I had never heard the kind of passionate, intense discussions about what was going on that I heard in the hospital. I'd never heard that before. I'd never even known that these kinds of conversations, and so I became fascinated with that. And that's what's in my book, is that detective story at the heart of every doctor-patient encounter.
And you love that. You love being able to help diagnose something.
I do.
It's a thrill. I mean, I look at you and you're beaming about it. Now, tell us about you write for the New York Times Magazine, and it's called Diagnosis. Talk about that column.
Well, when I first got to medical school and made this discovery about this process that went on, I would talk to everybody about this thing, this excitement in my life. And one of those people eventually became an editor at the New York Times. And he said, hey, do you think you could tell those stories in our pages? And I was like, I don't think so. And he's like, you know what, you're wrong, I'm right. So let's just try it. And so I've been writing it ever since, once a month, little mysteries.
And different mysteries that are really tough cases that really make you kind of scratch your head.
Very tough cases.
Now, and that is what kind of sparked your involvement with House, right? How did that come together for you?
Well, one of the executive producers was a big fan of my column, and he called me up and he said, I have this TV show that you might be interested in. I said, really? Tell me about it. And he said, well, it's about a irritable, arrogant doctor who hates patients and loves diagnosis. I'm like, oh, this is not going to last long. I better get on early.
So how does it continue to go then? Because I asked you earlier, I said, how do you come up with the ideas, or how did they come up with the ideas? And you said you ran out after 2 years of coming up with really funky different things that were going on with folks' health. So how did the stories continue?
I only ran out of cases of patients that I had seen myself
personally.
Okay,
there you go.
So there are many cases. One time when I was out in California, I was talking to Hugh Laurie, and he said, aren't you afraid that we're going to run out of stories? I'm like, oh, we got more stories than you got programs. And I think that that's true. I think that the body's ability to do crazy stuff in very certain circumstances is almost unlimited. And that's what's so cool and interesting and terrible about being a doctor. It's terrible to be sick. But it's fascinating.
It is fascinating. Let's talk about the book, though, because what are some of the things that we should know as patients? What can we do to be more empowered with your book and going to our doctors?
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing you can do as a patient is to tell your story. 80% of diagnoses are made based on the patient's story. Not testing that might confirm it, not the physical exam, just what the patient tells. And so doctors need to listen. Now, patients are not so good at telling, and doctors are not so good at listening. So it makes it kind of difficult. But that's what has to happen. A patient has to be sure that this story is important and needs to be told, and a doctor has to also be sure that story is important and needs to be heard.
And I asked you earlier, I said, if you're going to your doctor and you're finding yourself telling your doctor, listen, this is what's wrong with me, and you're not getting anywhere, what steps do you take then?
Well, I think you have to just tell the doctor that, you feel like you're not being heard. Because sometimes doctors are completely oblivious of how they appear, as we all are. Sometimes when we're wrapped up in our jobs, we don't recognize how we come off. So first, do that. And if that doesn't help, it's time to find a new doctor. Listening is extremely important. when you go see a doctor, it's really a collaboration of two experts. There's the doctor, who's an expert in bodies in general and diseases in general, and then there's the patient, who is the expert on this particular body and this particular disease. You need it both. You need both those experts.
For folks that will watch this segment and look at this book, Every Patient Tells a Story, Medical Mysteries and the Art of Diagnosis, what do you want them to walk away with? What's the real message to them? Every patient
Your
tells a
story is important. Tell your story. It's really important. And I just, it sounds dumb, and yet people don't do it.
I think it's great for us as viewers, but also great for doctors.
Yes.
Because they're going to become better listeners through your book.
Need to.
Let's talk about this event you are invited to. You're inviting everybody to come out for the Leap Year event. It's an annual event. Leap is an awesome organization. We want to put the information on the screen for folks to get involved if you like. Hey, listen, folks, it is the Leap Year event, Hopkins School, Thursday, February 25th. The cocktail reception is from 5:30 to 7 o'clock, dinner at 7:30 p.m., and it's going to be hosted at elegant homes across the greater New Haven area. And I know that Dr. Sanders will be at one of those events or one of those areas. One of the folks, I think it's Debbie's house you're going to be at, right?
Right.
Okay. All right, so if you want to catch up with Dr. Sanders, you can catch her there. In the meantime, again, folks, great book to have. Dr. Sanders, thank you so much.